Hey there, good evening. Welcome everyone to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show. This is a show that is dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So today we're doing my Monday night look back at a classic rock album. Today's classic rock album is this one, Van Halen II. This was their, of course, second release, which came in 1979. So let me just read. I'm going to hold this here for a sec. Somewhere. How am I there? There we are. Okay, so this was released on March 23rd, 1979 at the Sunset Sounds recording in Hollywood, California. It's about 31 minutes in length, so relatively short by album standards, even for that time period. Label was Warner Brothers, and Ted Templeton was the producer of this album. So this album was one of my first, actually. I think I want to say that I Got Fair Warning was my first one, and then I kind of went backwards a bit, and I ended up with Van Halen 2 and Van Halen 1, and I'm not really sure which one came first, but I'm pretty sure this one was near the beginning of my Van Halen era. So appearing on this album, of course, is the classic band featuring David Lee Roth on vocals, Eddie Van Halen on guitars, Alex Van Halen on drums, and Michael Anthony on the bass. Okay, so there are, I'm just going to actually use the track listing from here instead because it's really small print on this particular album. Okay, so it's got 10 tracks on it. To be honest with you, this was not one of my favorite Van Halen albums when it first came out. Probably took a while before it started gaining any kind of momentum. For years it was always like the number 4 or 5 album by them for me. You know, I liked everything else before I liked this. So but it's grown in my esteem over the years. I think part of the reason I don't think it was as heavy as Van Halen 1 and didn't have as many kind of catchy hooks and beats that you got off of Van Halen 1, but still pretty good album. So you got the two songs that start are the two covers, You're No Good and Dance the Night Away. They're okay, kind of poppy tunes, nothing spectacular. Somebody Get Me a Doctor is probably the first real song on this album, and didn't really like it at the beginning, but I love it now. It's probably my favorite track on this album. Heavy, catchy riff. It's a typical Van Halen song with lots of attitude, you know. Bottoms Up, another really good track on this album. Out of Love Again, a little bit unmemorable. It's probably one of the weaker tracks to me. Light Up the Sky, pretty good song. And then you got the Spanish Fly instrumental, which is really good. DOA is pretty good. And Women in Love, I could live without that one. And then you've got the radio-friendly Beautiful Girls, which was my favorite track on the album for years, but has since kind of slowed down a bit over time. So the best part of this album, I'm just going to stop holding it up for now, is that it's heavy, but not quite as heavy as Van Halen 1. Definitely a hard rock album. I think many people kind of consider Van Halen 1 as a bit of a heavy metal album. I don't think this quite falls there. Lots of super great guitar on this album, as there is on any Van Halen album with Eddie Van Halen on it, which means them all of them. I think the beats and the catchy riffs on this are pretty catchy, and they're pretty good. But this is still, you know, after all these years, even as good as this album I think is, and with all the stuff that's on here, the real catchiness of the album, I still think this one's still going to come up about 5th of my first 5 albums, even though it's much better. So But the bottom, like before, it would be, the other 4 would be up here, and it would be kind of left down here. Now it's in the pack. So, and it may even actually move up a little more. I do dig the cover of the album, and then I love this thing at the back here, the picture of them all doing their thing. David Lee Roth doing his thing. David Lee Roth, many of you know, I was a big fan of his. I'm not really sure why, but I liked him a lot when this band came out. It was the main reason I got into Van Halen was because of him. And not being a guitar player, Eddie Van Halen, as good as I thought he was, it didn't really matter to me. He sounded very I don't know, very different than any other guitar player is, I guess the best way to put it. That shredding that he does is off the charts. There's no doubt about that. But I was always a David Lee Roth fan, and that was the reason why I got into them. So this album, now 45 years in the past, it's hard to believe, is a good one though. Very sign of its times, but also one of the premier kind of sounds from that time period. This was the beginning of all that shredding that started with Eddie and moved to Randy Rhoads, and it was all over the place after that. But still pretty catchy at any rate. So I hope you get a chance to listen to this. Very good album. It's my album for Monday night look back at a classic rock album. I hope you like this. If you did, please like and subscribe. It's much appreciated. And we'll be back next Monday with another classic rock album from the classic rock era. Take care.